Peace, peace. Start touching this one. And I'm gonna shoot this video on brother Jabari, Garfield, and Shaka Upmost. Now, anyway, I'm not disrespecting none of these brothers. I'm just challenging some of the information in which they presenting. And they said that these three brothers themselves will destroy the information. As far as the black Indians or black Aborigines or whatever, I guess whatever paradigm he believed that's out there. It always been out there, just was suppressed. In the 1920s and the 1900s, people were saying that they was Indians, but because Walter Plecker and the Racial Integrity Act changed people classification to color. So understand this too. In case a nigga try to flag me or anything, you know, I'm gonna use the fair use, purpose for criticism, reporting, or teaching. All right. So with that being said, I'm gonna let him get into it. All right. And just note that in this video he will be referencing Dane Calloway. He will be just briefly talking about him, but in no way I'm showing this to disrespect the brother. I believe the brother definitely can take Jabari, Garfield, or Shock Upmost. But I'm here just to challenge what they were saying in the video. All right. With that being said, let me rock.
Indian now, brother. In the building. They are talking about we are Indian, and you see the fight is on there. Now, can I start? Now, now, brother Jabari, we're gonna have a little fun here. So can I say this? No, hold on, now, brother Jabari, are you denying that we did not intermix with the natives? Are you saying that, brother?
So let me ask this. Now, some mornings I drink coffee. And I'm a lightweight when it comes to coffee, right? So you know what I do? I put in half maybe the amount of coffee grounds, and the rest of it is water and milk and almond milk or whatever milk I'm using.
Right.
And I remember my father came over once and he said, "Can you make me some coffee?" And without thinking about it, I make it the way I make it.
Right.
And he said to me, "Is this coffee or is this almond milk?" Here's my point. I think that we have to acknowledge that it is likely that Africans, it's likely. I'm only saying likely because as a scholar, I only say something definitive when it can be definitively proven. Okay? I think that it is likely that Africans made several voyages to the New World. I think we can make a really strong argument that Africans did that there may have even been settlements of Africans. I think there's really strong arguments we can make around that.
Absolutely.
There are scholars that are beyond my weight class that have made these powerful arguments.
That's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I'm critiquing.
Right.
But I think what we have to do is we have to recognize that if Jabari, instead of making that glass, that mug of milk for my father, then proceeded to put that same amount of coffee grounds into a 5-gallon bucket and added enough milk and water to fill that 5-gallon bucket, at what point is it no longer coffee? Here's my point. I think we have to recognize that just as Africans made journeys here, and we should acknowledge that Africans had the technology, had the skill to be able to make those journeys. On the same token, there's another motivation to this new movement to call African people the original people of the New World.
Y'all telling me to turn down the volume?
And we have to speak to it very clearly.
I can turn it down.
Our period of us being enslaved, here it is right here. Our period in our enslavement has been told to us the wrong way. We have not had control of the story of our enslavement.
Okay.
Because in actuality, what we should be doing is talking about how people who had the least resources destroyed a powerful global system.
Right.
And just note, he did say that so-called Africans made settlements into this region. Now look, I'm putting this out for my disclaimer, all right? I don't subscribe to the word African, all right? And a lot of people gonna have problems with that. But we're going to show and prove, right? So, boom, we're going to etymology online. We're going to go to etymology online, and we're going to look up the word African. Now, it's saying Latin, it's saying terra, it's saying African land, Libya, or Carthaginian, It say territory, the province of Africa. It say as a continent. All right, so now it goes to an adjective. It's saying the word of uncertain origins. Okay, now it's saying the word has uncertain origins. So they don't even know where the word derived from. But according to the language that was used, that'll give you at least a little idea. It say the Latin word originally was used only in reference to the regions around the modern Tanzania. Now, this ain't got nothing to do with us being indigenous, but I just want to put that out there about the word African, because these niggas swing that word around and they don't even know their self. They believe that word was applied to everybody. Now, look, Carthaginian territory is not the whole region of Africa. That's only that's at the top to the north. You understand what I'm saying? Actually, that would be called Europe today. You understand? So now check this out. Now it's saying modern Tanzania. Now y'all already know what it's at. You Google that and look that up yourself. You'll see that's not the whole continent. Okay? It's not the whole continent. It was a small region that they call. But we're going to see some other thing. Now check this out. It says extended to the whole continent. All right? Derivations from the Phoenician cognate of Arabic, afar, thus, earth, is tempting. The Middle English word like Afrique. All right. Now look, let's look up the word African. Let's go to Africa. All right. We go to African. Now we're saying Old English. If the word was African and the people of African origins invented it, the word would be in another language. It wouldn't be in Old English. It would be in the language of the people that speak, so it wouldn't be English, all right? It says, a native or inhabitant of Africa, from Latin, Africanus, of African, African. It say right here, see, Africa, used of white residents of Africa from 1815, use of black residents of the U.S. from 18th century, okay? It say when it's especially meant one bought from Africa. Okay, now I say when it especially meant one bought from Africa, which sounds like a fucking code word. It say, and sometimes was contrasted to native-born Negroes. Okay, it say as an adjective by 1560s pertaining to Africa or Africans. Old English had, it say Africanist from 1720. It's from 1722. It say as or pertaining to Black Americans. Okay, now it's saying by 1720, say as pertaining to Black American. Now, like I said, this word ain't even saying say native or it say native or inhabitant of Africa, okay? It's a use of white resident. Now it's showing you first, it's saying use of white residents, okay? Then it's saying use of residents of the U.S. from 18th century. Okay, now how the fuck are you an African? And how the fuck was the slaves that was so-called brought over here weren't even African. They was from different tribes. Later on, when they started the 5 races of men and they started giving these people destinations such as Asia, such as Europe, such as Africa, such as America, such as well, I believe, hold on, it was America, Africa, I guess they had Malayan on it, but Malayan would be considered Asia. Well, India is part of Asia, and then it had the Mongoloids, and then it had the Caucasian, which is the from Europe, according to what they say. But that's not true, because we know that shit was just mapped out around like the 1800s. So prior to the 1800s, there was black people all over the world. But these black people that was all over the world didn't come from Africa. And this is like I tell people, the Australians don't consider themselves to be Africans, but these niggas will say, oh, well, the Australians came from Africa about 300 BC, or try to put a time date to it. And the same thing when they talk about everybody else. We got pictures of Japanese people with dreadlocks that look just like black people or whatever, but they came from Africa too. No, we can't go on that, because that was designated in the 1900s by motherfuckers like Darwin and his cousins. You just look these motherfuckers. You look them up. or whatever. But that was designated then to say, oh, all black people came from Africa, when they know damn well the original Europe, the original British was black, the original Europeans was black. We're going to get into that though. All right, but just to show you that.
That's what we should be describing, rather than describing the story like good white folk came into their good right mind and released black people. That's the story that that the European would like for us to believe, so that it continues to disempower us. If we were telling the story of our enslavement properly, we would understand that perspective, and we would no longer be ashamed of the fact that most of us came here, the overwhelming majority of us came here, as enslaved people. That's the challenge. But because we're afraid, ashamed, and it's painful, we would rather say we're everything else. And that's the problem. So I'm not saying that Africans didn't make journeys here. I'm not saying... Now, first of all, we should recognize something very simple. We should recognize something. Now, see, he's distracting. You see? We should say something very simple. This is something simple we need to recognize. If people are in any part of the world... It's because Africans went there.
That's right.
Because the first people on the planet were people of African descent.
That's right.
And people who have been in places around the world for longer periods of time, you know that those are people that we would even consider phenotypically African.
Yes.
But the question has to be, how wide do you open the lens? Because if you then want to say that Africans are the original native people, then you have to also say that Africans are the original European. Everybody's African if you open the lens.
They say Africans original European. Let me show you guys something. Remember, he's supposed to be a scholar too, right? All right, this is in a newspaper. This is actually realhistory.org. And he has like a brief little article about this right here. All right, so the Telegram, all right? So it say, New History, GCSE course on migration branded disturbing and dangerous, all right? They say the course suggests that Africans arrived in Britain before the English. It say a new GCSE history course said to teach students that Africans arrived in Britain before English has caused an uproar among academics. The module which will be offered by the Oxford and Cambridge Examination Board (OCR) from September was created with academics from Black and Asian Study Association. It said it will cover new arrival of UK from Roman up to modern migrants such as the Syrians and okay, all right, so we'll go on, all right, but it's telling you that the original settlements of and you know, and always understand this, right? Let me just put this out there, right? We just went over the word African, okay? When the people came here, they was not Africans, or we don't even want to say the people came here, because from my research, black people have always been in the Americas, man. They have always been in the Americas. There was never a time where it wasn't no black people in America. Now, what they attempt to do is this. Like when you read this, it say history course says it teach that Africans arrived. They didn't arrive nowhere. The people in Britain was already melanated. And look, check this out. And here you go. It say here's how European quickly evolved lighter skin. Now this is Smithsonian. This is an article. Let me see. Now, these niggas talk about I could pull up articles and do empirical, and do research, man. I don't have to pull up no fucking because all this article is combined with people who done did the research, that go to universities and then did the data and everything. This research, this paper right here has all that in it. So you have to do the sources. I don't have to check the sources and say, well, okay, and check every source out and just to see if they legitimate or not. It's too many people saying this. Okay, now you have to start making conclusions on your own, because if it can't be proven, then you have to at some point in time say, all right, well, this is the evidence, this is what I got, okay, and this is my conclusion, because everybody's conclusion that do research don't have to be your conclusion. That's their conclusion, not yours. Okay, say darker skinned people lived in Europe until fairly recently. Okay, until fairly recently. Okay, now when you go down, it got a little conjecture to it, but it reads right here. I mean, it has pretty decent article. All right. Now it's saying for years researchers assumed that lighter skin as humans migrated from Africa to Middle East into Europe about 40,000 years ago. It say a sun lowered in the sky and shorter day length would have favored skin. That would more easily synthesized by vitamin D. Say, but researchers are now learning that the factors must have been at play. It say the other factors might have been at play. It say, for example, earlier this year, the genome sequence of the hunter-gatherer who lived in what is now Spain helped build the case that Europe was home to blue-eyed, dark-skinned people. They say this man, however, lived just 7,000 years ago. It say the researcher writes that the analysis suggests that lighter skin was not yet widespread and ubiquitous in Europe at this time. Earlier works done with the genes of 83 people in the new study supported the linguistics evidence also shows that population in Europe about 8,000 years ago would have been mixed and diverse. Now look, when they saying mixed and diverse, like I said, all that got to, you have to do your own, like I said, most of this stuff, man, you have to read it, and just like you read in any other thing, you come up, your comprehension, and you come up with your conclusion. But you can't make a conclusion if you only have but so much information to work with. You know what I'm saying? I already know in the 1800s that it was already kings and queens. Look, man, you can Google this shit. You can Google this. Look. Now, we want to believe that these people just came and they conquered, they came with white people there and they just took it and then they left. Them people was already there. And like I said, by them inventing this thing in the 1900s where they designating all people with melanated skin to be African, that shit right there just made everything more confusing than anything. You understand? Now, let me see. Now these is just basics. Everybody done seen stuff like this, man. You done seen y'all done seen images of this black nobility. I mean, like, I don't even have to really show you at this point in time. I'm just giving you an example. You know what I'm saying? This brother right here look like an African American, bro. Look at this nigga. And I'm not saying he is, but I'm just telling you there was black people all over the world. Black people did not just come from Africa. That is the biggest fucking lie that they ever told ever in history. That's the biggest lie. And then understand this. At this time, it wasn't even called Africa. They was individual different people or different territories. Like it was Carthaginian territory. It was different individual territories, all right? So now let's go back to this guy, man.
It's that wide. Yeah. That's not what we're saying. The overwhelming majority of Africans got here as enslaved people.
Yes.
And we destroyed the system that enslaved us.
Yes, we did.
So when we tried to disconnect ourselves from our African continent, we have big problems. And you know, I thought about doing this. Because honestly, Sa, when you put these three brothers together to talk about this, I respect the scholarship of these two brothers more than I can acknowledge. I think that the three of us would destroy this easily.
Well, I want to hear they say.
So I want.
I'm gonna play that again. You heard what he said?
I want you to hear that easily. When you put these three brothers together to talk about this, I respect the scholarship of these two brothers more than I can acknowledge. I think that the three of us would destroy this. When you put these three brothers together to talk about this, I respect the scholarship of these two brothers more than I can acknowledge. I think that the three of us would destroy this easily. So I want you to hear that there are people who are on YouTube and other platforms that are.
You saying this dude named Calloway?
Well, I'm gonna go right in. I'm gonna go in. You in now? Let me say to you that I thought about mentioning a particular name when we said we were going to talk about this. And I said, am I trying to start beef with a brother who is trying to do his own research? But the reality is that if your research is so faulty and your premises are even more faulty, scholars have to challenge it. And so the premises of one YouTuber who has some of his videos, Sonetta, that have been up for months, have nearly 500,000 views. He has a video that's been up for 6 months, and he has 452,000 views. And what's the point? He says, who told you that you were an African? We are the Aboriginal people of the United States. I certainly will. So I'm talking about this brother whose name is Dane Calloway, and I'm really hoping that there's going to be a point that we're able to actually address some of what he's saying. Because the reality is,
Dane what?
Dane Calloway. Here goes one of the, look at this one here.
Okay.
Now, I know that YouTube cut off the bottom of the title, but the title here is, who said that all African Americans came from, and the next word is Africa. And what he does is he does what I call Google scholarship. Now listen, Google is invaluable to find your leads, but you then have to do research. You can't just look at two pictures that look like the same and say this proves the point. So Dane Calloway and others will do things like this. They'll find a picture of someone who is supposedly, purportedly to be a native person, and they'll find a picture of a brother that looks similar, and they'll put them together. And that's what people are clicking on. Let's be really clear. That's why they're clicking. They're clicking because they want to actually disconnect themselves from the story of those people who were, look at this one's even more ridiculous. Look at this one. The untold truth of history and why it was told to you in reverse. By the way, the image that he shows is an image of an African American dude with that, maybe he wears a stovepipe hat, which was very popular in that period. And then he puts him next to who? Abraham Lincoln. The commentary that he's making without making it is that Abraham Lincoln was likely this man. And I'm going to tell you that when you look at his quote-unquote documentaries, none of them are longer than about 16 minutes. I've had the misfortune of watching about 3 of them. Dane Calloway, I'm going to send you his stuff.
Oh, don't. You better not.
You have to, because I'm going to expect that Shaka is going to come from South Florida.
Like I said, I ain't trying to disrespect the brother Calloway in no shape, form, or fashion by showing this, but it shows you the ignorance of them. They don't have an understanding. They just can't grasp the understanding. And this guy Jabari, he's so educated. He's what's called the idiot savant. That he's so educated, he's stupid. I mean, and no disrespect to the brother, man, but for you to sit there and, like, you know what I'm saying, outside to try to clown somebody and saying that everything he's putting up there, see, this is the stuff that they use to try to clown people. So you're going to come with your research, make sure you come correct, because these guys right here be trying to clown shit, you know what I'm saying? And they think this is, like, people, he done sat down and did documentaries and spent his time doing this. And that's the reason why I believe a lot of his videos get the views he got, because of the sequence and the way, the order he put it in, which is wonderful. But for this guy right here, Jabari, to sit here and just straight try to destroy this man's information, don't worry about it, though. He said them 3 right there can destroy it. You know, I'm quite sure they're going to, at some point in time, they're going to call Dane Calloway up to the plate or whatever, though. But, I mean, listen, I'm cocky enough to say that I would destroy all 3 of them in the room at the same time, because it's just going to be simple questions going to be asked. And in this video, I'm not going to put all my information out there. I'm just going to put some of the things that I use or whatever, though. But I'm not going to touch on the main money of it, which is the Indian slavery, which they was calling the Indian Negroes. And these niggas don't even understand it. Oh, some Indians was dark. That's the reason they was calling them Negroes. No. If the Indians had to go through the Spanish hands, they didn't have no Mongoloids in the Spanish hands. So the only way you can be called a Negro, meaning you had to go somewhere through the Spaniards. You had to go through the Spaniards to be called that, because they was the only people calling you Negro. The English called you black. They say you black people or blackamoors. And we got images and proof to prove that they was calling people that. Despite what people think, they don't like, they have problem with Moors or whatever, they was calling people Moors here. I'm not saying that maybe The people here wasn't calling themselves that, but somebody was calling them that, and they died.
And Garfield, who was a beast on this kind of research, a beast on. I look at. You have to hear me say. You have to hear me say on camera that Garfield is doing journalism. He's pulling together people and telling primary stories.
You know what I like about Garfield?
This is the kind of stuff
work a lot less harder.
because he's actually reaching out to people.
Garfield don't want to see the taunts in this one, man. Just put that shit out there. Any of you minions that come and that deal with Garfield, tell Garfield the brother Tauntless want to have a talk with him. You know, I put a video up of him and his brother Rob Bourne, video with him. None of these niggas never inboxed me and said anything. But just tell them that Tauntless want to have a talk with him, especially after what he said.
And asking them their story.
I think he does it just for fun.
So it is for fun because something wrong with Garfield, just like something wrong with us. So we need to be able to dismantle this. So and then let me say to you that while I was in the chat room in one of the videos that you played recently, people that I respect said not every African American came from Africa, and so I disagreed with them. So let me say this: I was in the chat room, and one of the people that made this comment was our sister Empress segment, right? And so I challenged what she said, and I think she thought that I was attacking her, and I had to say I would never attack you because I respect you. But on the same token, we have to acknowledge that we are Africans who, the overwhelming majority of us, came to these shores as enslaved people. And so I'm not saying that Africans didn't make early journeys, but those are in much smaller numbers. Even many people believe that there were as many as 12.5 million Africans that were brought here during enslavement to the United States. To the United States. Yeah, well, I think that the number is larger when you say the Western world. Okay, so yes. Well, let me say this. We're talking about millions.
Can I ask you a question? This was between 1824 and 1840.
Look, hold on. Let me go back to what he said, because he ain't even know. Look, he's supposed to be a scholar who knows everything. Listen what he just said.
Can I ask you a question? This was between 1824.
Well, I think that the number is larger. That there were as many as 12.5 million Africans that were brought here during enslavement to the United States as enslaved people. And so I'm not saying that Africans didn't make early journeys, but those are in much smaller numbers. Even many people believe that there were as many as 12.5 million Africans that were brought here during enslavement to the
All right, let's go to the evidence. Let's go to the people who claim they did the research. So let's go to this evidence right here. Okay, so we can have a template on what they believe, all right? So we're going to go, we at slavevoid.org, we at the estimate table right here, and what I put in is embark regions and embark and / disembark. So we know embark the people who got on, disembark the people who got off. All right, so over 100 years, over 100-year period, all right? So he said 12.5 million people came here to North America. Now he's supposed to be a scholar in which people trust and they listen to, right? So now look, now we already know. Now look, it says Gambia off the shores of the Atlantic. Now it's saying embark almost 800,000, disembark 600,000, closer to 600,000. All right, so Sierra Leone, the same thing, almost closer to 400,000, but disembarked like 300 and a half. All right, Wind Coast or whatever. Now these is countries where they telling you the Africans so-called came from. All right, and this is from, let me see, let me go back. All right, the 1500s until the 1900s. All right, now it's still saying the 1900s because they were still shipping people according to what they say. All right, so now look. Now these are pretty much, this is the number, so it's a total, and it's a Southeast African Indian Ocean Islands. It's a West Central Africa. It says Bright Bar. I don't know where the fuck this at. It's a Bright of Benin, Gold Coast, the Wind Coast, Sierra Leone, and Senegambia. All right, now look. I'm gonna go ahead and say I believe these people right here came from the Americas, man. We know people in Sierra Leone came from the Americas. How can we prove this? We know that the Maroons was moved to Sierra Leone. I got 3 videos on this, and then sent to fucking, the Maroons was sent to Nova Scotia, which is Canada. After they got to Nova Scotia, they complained because the weather wasn't consistent with the weather that was in Jamaica, and they moved them Sierra Leone. Okay, now this can be proven as well as they move other black Indians that was already in the Canada region to Sierra Leone, because you have people in Sierra Leone that's suing the I believe they suing the French government, or they suing the British government because they found out that they was originally from Canada. All right, so now we already know Sierra Leone is suspect. All right, so now check this out. Let me see. Hold up. All right, so let's go this way right here. And you know what? I got off of the topic of what I was saying. So this is a broad. All right, so Europe. All right, so now they saying they took Africans to Europe too. I didn't know that. I believe that the people they took to Europe was already Americans. All right, so now it's showing you the numbers. Now your man right there said 12 point. This mainland North America right here, all right? So now he's saying 12.5 million. This showing you right here, embark closer to 500,000, disembark closer to 400,000. All right, so it's saying 400,000 people was disembarked here, right? Now it shows you the other countries. It's a British Caribbean, all right? Now we know the people in the Caribbean. This is a fucking lie right here. These wasn't people. These was people that they was moving from the Americas back and forth to the Caribbean, and I can easily prove that. We could easily prove that. Maybe there might be a few mixtures of some Africans in here, but the majority of these people you see right here was people from North America that was shipped to the shipped to the Caribbean. Same thing with the French. These people right here was probably the Haitians and some of the people that was enslaved on the island of Espanol. All right, Dutch America. We already know that the Dutch took people from what we call what did they call I forgot what they call New Amsterdam. All right, so we already know that the Dutch already was bringing people, moving people from New Amsterdam back and forth to the Caribbeans and taking them back to Europe. As far as all this. So we got Brazil. We already know that the Portuguese came to Brazil and there was already black people in Brazil. Now it's showing you Africa, right? Now look, why would it have Africa up here? Why doesn't it have why is it showing you embark and disembark? Because they was moving people to Africa too. So why would it have, if the people came from Africa, then why would they be moving people back to Africa? All right, but Jabari, since he's the scholar, the premier scholar that Sarnetta loves to interview, this is the total. So your man Garfield was trying to put you on to something, but I'm about to smash Garfield's dreams right now when he come on. But he was trying to tell you something right here. Okay, these are the people that was moved around with maybe. I'm gonna go ahead and say this. With maybe these being the total number of the people that was brought from Africa. Because I'm also believing this too, right? A lot of the blacks that was already in Europe was being shipped out of Europe back to Africa too. The original European blacks that I just read about in that article, they was being shipped back to Africa. I think all these black countries that have black people, if they didn't decimate them, they sent them to Africa and then called that continent and said, oh, well, this was all black people came from. But it's mighty strange that you only could find a damn hominid on it. You know what I'm saying? Now, you know, a lot of these niggas, they don't want to accept Michael Cremore work as scholar, but none of these niggas are anthropologists or archaeologists or anthropologists. So your word doesn't override a real anthropologist or you know what I'm saying, or someone who do the work. How is a regular layman who do research on computers or read out of books or whatever? How is he going to challenge an anthropologist? An anthropologist, or someone who's making an outlandish statement saying, well, it was people here in Illinois 300 million years ago. They said they found the gold chain here that was 300 million years old. So you have to take that up with him to find out how he came up with that. But for somebody to make an outlandish statement like that, he has to know something that you guys don't fucking know. All right? So
the United States.
Not to the United States.
To the United States.
Not to
Yeah, well, I think that the number is larger when you say the Western world. Okay, so yes. Well, let me say this. We're talking about millions.
Can I ask some questions?
This was between 1824 and 1844 when the slave trade was over. So there was an illegal slave trade. If you remember the movie Amistad, it was about a slave going away to Cuba, right?
Because the slave trade had been outlawed
from 1807. So those people never went to, they captured them and took them to Sierra Leone, the English. They captured them like pirates and took them there because it was a legal slave trade. So they never came to America. So we don't care if they were Hebrew, Muslim or anything. No. They took them, they caught them while they're on the voyage and took them around. They caught them while they're on the voyage and took them around.
Now you heard what Brother Jabari said. He said they took them from here. They was already in Cuba. But then let's understand this too, because this can get mixed up too, right? Because if they're already telling you that they was bringing black people to Cuba, you could easily mistake and say, well, oh, them was black people that was already brought here, and then shit back out.
Right, so they captured them, went to Africa, and then went back to Sierra Leone. All right, for the ones for Cuba, the ones that went to Cuba, they probably stayed, they probably came here or somewhere in the Americas. But my point is though, with the slave voyages is that we can track almost every single slave that came here. If you read Igbos in the Atlantic world, it gives you an idea of which tribes, up to 40 tribes that people came from. So if they went to South Carolina, they look at the ship records and say,
So because of a book that say Igbos in the Atlantics, he think he can track every, so that one book have that much data. You see how these niggas is pseudo. These niggas is pseudo. And you gotta call it like you said. Brother Jabari don't even know what he's talking about. He just said it was 12.5 million people that was brought here to North America. He had to correct them. Now he's saying that one book can basically tell you where all the people came from in Africa, when I already proved to you that they sent millions of people from here to Africa. So how the fuck is you going to cover that up? As well as the word slave does not just designate to the 380,000 people that they brought here, but more likely, we don't know what the numbers of people that they had here. But I know from my research that they said it was over 50 million people here in North America. Now, I took further research than that. Some people believe that it was 112 million people here, okay? And right here on the southeast north coast where we're from, that's right, the original indigenous person, Aborigine, is from the southeast northeast. And we was all up and down the southeast as far as California too. But the majority of us lived all up along the southeast, all the way out to the Caribbean.
They tell you the person's name and which tribe they came from. They have so much records, it's unbelievable. So people who deny the slave trade, which is what you're doing. But the problem is, family, the black American, and I gotta say this, the slaves that came here, they totally different than any other slave that went to the Caribbean and anywhere. The type of slavery and the chattel slavery they did here, they did something to the psyche of the black American that is unheard of. Because you know what? One day we're Native American, the next day we're Hebrew, the next day we are Moors, the next day we are something. We are always changing, but we never want to say. We are always changing, but we never want to say.
Now look, let me correct him. This nigga's pseudo. I'm sorry, all right? Because check this out. Whether or not you can say we Hebrew or that's a language or whatever you want to call it, right? Hebrew writing was found all up and down in the Americas. Now, he wouldn't know that because he's still studying Imhotep the Fifth. So he wouldn't know about none of this stuff. These niggas' scholarship as far as the Americas is limited. They don't know nothing as far as the Americas, okay? Now,
that we're African. Yeah. Never. And that's one of the deepest rooted things. That we're African. Yeah. Never. And that's one of the deepest rooted things.
Now, he said Moors. We already got images of people being called Moors here. Or the word Amer is a prefix. Amerique is where we first see that word Amer. But then we see Tamaray, and we see all these other words that they was calling America that people don't understand. When they say we believe it was Turtle Island, but we see more ancient words in which people was claiming that it was called or whatever. So now he's saying that we're not Indians, right? All right, so boom. This nigga right here don't know shit, man. I'm sorry, all right? So now, I got to always go back to here. Now, check this out. I gotta always go back. And even before he even say anything, I'm just gonna shut him up in a heartbeat. All right, so DNA from a 12,000-year-old skeleton. We already know about this. This is Naya. All right, and this was found all the way in a damn cave, and her body is supposed to be 12,000 years old. Now, I'm gonna challenge that itself because you know why? When I was reading the Forbidden Archaeology, Michael Cremore said that they found things that dated up to be as far as 300,000 years old. Now, I'm not even gonna say the outlandish number when he said 300 million, but he said they found things to be 300,000 years old, and the chief or the person they had to report to said, nah, that's larger than the scale that we have to evaluate this stuff on. So he marked it as 20,000 years, which I think the same thing they're doing with the skeleton right here. But nonetheless, check this out. It's a prevailing ideas. Now, prevailing ideas point to all Native American descendants from the ancient Siberians who moved across the Barren Land Bridge, it's between Asia and North America. Now, we don't believe that shit. Now, it's saying between 26,000 and 18,000 years ago. It's at this time, all right, whatever, all right. So now, look, I just wanted to give you the timeline when they said that they came here, 26 to 18,000 years ago, all right? So now, look, we already been through this plenty of times, you guys. You already know. It says, but there lies in the puzzle, modern Native American closely resemble people of China, Korea, and Japan, but the older skeletons do not. So if they saying that these people came here 26,000 years ago, it says, but the older skeletons do not. So who would be older that was on this land other than these people? All right, it says anthropologist and paleontologist. So if you want a source, his name is James Chatter, and he's the lead author on the study and the owner of applied paleoscience. Maybe you guys want to reach out to him or whatever. All right. Now, this is what he also goes further into say. It says a small number of early American specimens discovered so far has smaller and shorter faces and larger and narrower skulls than later Native Americans, more closely resembling the modern people of Africa, Australia, and South Pacific Islands. Now, look. If Australian and the people that came from South Pacific Island, the melanated people, are all from Africa, why wouldn't they just say all Africa? Why wouldn't they just say, well, the Australian people came from Africa, so we don't even have to say that they look like the Australian. We could just say they look like all the African because there's so many different racial classifications in Africa. So they didn't even really have to mention Australia and South Pacific Island because you people already think that the people in Australia and South Pacific Island already came from Africa. Somehow they jumped on a boat and just migrated out into the wilderness where they don't know where there's going to be food at. Is the conditions going to be equivalent to where they leaving or whatever? So this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard or whatever. But nonetheless, though, it say this has led to speculation that perhaps the first American and Native American came from different homeland. All right, so why would he say, now, if they telling you that the oldest, according to what they were saying, which we know that they lying and they mixing everything up, all right? We know that they lying. They saying that the so-called Mongoloids or whatever we want to call them came here 26,000 years ago, right? So how long ago you think the first Americans was here? All right? How long ago do you think the first Americans was here? You understand? Now you start speculating and start thinking, all right? Now it say then later they say more closely resembling the modern people of Africa, Australia, and South Pacific Islands. Now we know 26,000 years ago. The fucking word African didn't even exist. So these people wasn't even Africans. So that's what I'm trying to say. It was melanated, it was black people all over the fucking planet. And they use Africa, the word African, as a way to contain all of these black people that was on all these different continents and say, well, all these black people started in Africa, so they all African. The word African didn't even exist 26,000 years ago. Okay? And when it was applied, it says use of white residents of the 1815s. This is the first time that they was applying it, and it was applied to white people. It's a use of residents of the U.S. from the 18th century. So they was calling us I guess, like I said, these are the people Iberia. Okay, now we can go down. It say 1560. It say 1720. Now all of these dates, the longest you got is 1560. All right, which if you want to use that, that's almost That's like 400 and something years ago. You understand? That's 400 something years ago. But they telling you that that the oldest people who came here to this country, or well, the speculation according to what history says, the Mongoloids came here and crossed the Bering Strait, which we know that's a fucking lie, which I already got information and go further than that. Naya herself is almost 12,000 years old. Okay? So, and with that being said, they also telling you, he not even challenging it. He telling you the first Americans resemble the people of Australia, Africa, and South Pacific Island. Now, like I said, I believe it was melanated people all over the world. Once the European domination, they narrowed that, and then they just made a destination to where all black people came from Africa, and then they give you the image of even when Darwin showed you the image of an African or whatever. All Africans don't got big noses like that and big lips. I've seen people Africans from Mali or whatever who don't even have big noses and don't even look like that. You understand what I'm saying? So that right there was a negative denotation, because all Africans do not look alike. Okay?
To be, but that's not fair.
No, but hold on. Let me finish, Jabari. Let me just say this. For the lady folks, the brother True Story had called Son the other day, and he made a point about Congo and Angola, how the brothers in New York, some of the first residents, black residents, had the name Congo and Angola, showing where they came from. So we know people came here, had the names, and were Africans. But the point is, family, all you got to do is look at the census. This is the trick to study in the quote-unquote New World. You had New Sweden, which is over where Delaware is. You had New France, which is the part in the middle of the country where they parted off, where the French were. Then you had some parts of Florida in the south that they control, where the English control, and they had a part of the Spanish control. Then you had other parts where other people were, New Netherlands, New Dutch, whatever. So now when the population were being counted first and people started counting, you had to take into consideration that the whole country being independent was 1776 before 1800. So the numbers increase after the population. So when they do the population growth and show like, how is it you were 40,000 and then by 1900 you 1 million, and this is the games that they play, but they don't play that game for white people. White people could explode into hundreds of millions now, but we can't do that. We can't multiply. We can't have children. Like they never used to have black men who are women who were they had breeding plantations where women would have black women would have 13, 14 kids. You know, so these are the things that they don't consider, man, and it's a sad. Can I comment on this? For those of you
You know what? Before I even fuck with this guy right here, let me see something. What am I looking for? Alright. You know what? Touch on this first before I even go there. Alright, so let me see something. Alright, so this is, the census 1790 to 1990. This is 1790, right? Now this is something I never even considered when I was looking at this prior, right? So now it tells you, we know total population, white, black, we got American Indian, Eskimo, Asian, etc., right? So now, when you go down right here to 1790, all right, this is the black column. This is the total population column. This is the white column. This is the black column. So they telling you in 1790 that it was 757,000 black people here, right? Now look, now he's saying 757 black people here totally, right? Now check this out. North America, from 1500s until the 1900s, they only brought over 380,000 people. So you telling me, now, we already know, I already done said the first slaves document that they got is 1619. We know that them people came from the Caribbeans, and they was captured by an English vessel and brought back to Virginia. So them people wasn't not Africans, okay? So like I said, my thing is, I don't believe that they start, because the research I've seen all different types of research. I've seen people who contradict other researchers and say that they was not bringing Africans here into the 1800s. And this is my This is my research that I have seen. They weren't bringing Africans because they had the Indian slaves the whole time. But these niggas don't know that the Indians was black. Now, just like I said, now that picture right there was in the Yucatan, right? Now this is in Mexico, right? Look how these people look. Now we know the Europeans right here. These are the invaders, right? But look how these people. This man got a fucking afro. You understand? And look what he got on his head. Look what he got on his head. Now look, this is in the Yucatan, Guatemala. Okay. Now look how these people look. Now, I'm sorry, y'all. I just gotta show and prove, man. Sometime because sometimes you gotta show the images or whatever and show. Now, this is the Americas, right? Now they gonna say that this is pseudo. They gonna say, oh no, this is not real. We can see these people right here. These are black people. These people do not have the images or the phenotypical type of what they show us Indians look like. Now, if the historians and the scholars just told you right here, they just told you right here, they said. It says the first Americans closely resemble the people of African, Australian, South Pacific Islands. Now, looking at these people right here, wouldn't these people resemble them? And they just can't phantom that because of the people that they told that was brought here. Now, this is in Canada. Look at this lady right here. It's not an African. These are some of the other Nova Scotians that probably was sent out. All right, so we could go on and on. These are Aborigines. These are Indians. These are not no Africans. These are people who was already here. Okay, and then I'm starting to think this too, right? You know why? Think of this too, right? You know why? Let me see something. Let me see if I can find that, man, real quick. Now, I'm going to come back to it. When I seen this image right here, right? All right, and I seen other images like this. There's another image of a black lady that got similar things on, like the Statue of Liberty. That's why the French made the Statue of Liberty, because the Statue of Liberty was supposed to be an indigenous Aborigine first. That's why she got them things on her head. Them supposed to be feathers, okay? Because I see the same images when I look at the people who was here. Now look, this another indigenous people. I said we can go on and on and on with this, man. We can go on. We can challenge. These are indigenous people. These are not Africans, man. See this? Let me see. Oh, it's clicking. These are not Africans. It's saying America. This is on the northeast South Shore board where I always show you people. And these are the Europeans that came here. Look, these are indigenous people that got indigenous headdresses on. But these niggas wouldn't know that. They wouldn't know that because they don't go that far. This is actually in Africa. This is Hispaniola. Look how these people look. You know what I'm saying? More images of Negroes who was already here. This is in the Caribbean. Well, that's something else I got. This is in Barbados. This is a coin that they found in Barbados. Also, just for the sake, while we got your man Garfield here, let's touch, since he's saying scholarship is so faulty and they brought all these people here. Now let's keep this into consideration, right? What was just shown here. I just showed you that in the 1790s that it was these are the people that's documented, because you got to also understand, in 1790 they were still warring with the Seminole, they were still warring with the Creek, they were still warring with some of the Cherokees, they were still warring with a lot of these other tribes. So these other tribes wasn't even counted. These are the people that was counted, that was conquered. This larger number, when you see up here, when you see this larger number jump up here, this is not a population growth for these people. These are people that was captured as they go along, all right, or people who, I guess, you want to say, gave in to the Europeans or whatever. So these are all people right up in here, right? Because you see, it jumps up almost 250,000 in 10 years. Okay, so they had that many breeding farms to where it jumped up that much. You know what I'm saying? Then it jumps up another almost 400,000 in 10 years. Then almost another 350,000, and as you see, it jumps up more and more and more. Now by 1830, you see, now he gets said the slave trade stopped around this time right here. But you see the numbers just go up. The numbers go up, and as you see, there's no Native Americans to be shown in none of these columns right here or whatever. You don't start seeing them until later on, because I'm starting to see that these were some of the people that was conquered, and they was claiming what they were at this point in time. Because if they put all the people on the reservations, then this will reflect for the people on the reservations as well too. All right, so let me go back to this. I ain't want to just really address Shaka because he ain't really talking about shit. But yeah, man, just want to touch that. And then look, just because this nigga right here is so naive, he don't know. He think his scholarship is so like Jabari said that these three guys. Well, how do you explain this? We got article after articles telling you that it was all. Now this is, check this out. Here we go. I want this shit to start jumping up. All right, so we read this before, went over it, but this is empirical evidence. It's a monthly record of anthropological science. All right, now these are anthropologists. None of these guys up there is anthropologists, man. None of them guys are either. I don't even believe PhDs or professors at colleges. I don't even believe. All right. Now look, they say the recent paper in the Journal of Bricks and Trevor and Julian implies that the undeformed Negro physical type inhabit the Virginia island in pre-Columbian times. Not only is this implication contrary to previous accepted founding by the Antillean area, it's shown later, but it also fails to give adequate consideration to the possibility of these skeletons remaining representing intrusive Negro burials. Excuse me. They say the mere presence of the skeletons in the sand and shell mounds. Now I say shell mounds, okay? They found other shell mounds in Brazil. Okay, them was the pyramids. That's the pyramids that they found in Brazil that go back to 3500 BC was made out of fucking shells. All right, it say out of sand and shell mounds. It say of Indian origin. It say lacking careful stratigraphical records. It say it's not certain evidence of primary association with the accompanying artifacts. Let me open this up, man. My eyes is. My bad. All right, I can see it better now. All right, there you go. Back. All right, we was right here. Accompanying artifact. They say, moreover, I venture to say that the few physical anthropologists familiar with American Indian skulls would mistake for Indians those illustrated by Brixton and Trevor and Julian. Indeed, most physical anthropologists will probably be less conservative and say Negroes instead of Negroid. Okay, so they arguing whether not call them Negroid or Negroid. All right, so here we go. We got another source, and then as you read this shit, you'll find more and more. So, and this is just for this onion head motherfucker Garfield because he think he an African. Okay, they say in support of the opinion that these authors are describing Negroes, I wish to present a similar case. Now he's saying a similar case to what they already found in the West Indies. It say from Barbados, British West Indies. Say from correspondence with Mr. E.M. Shilstone of Bridgetown, let's say Barbados. It appears that in August 1933, he commenced to evacuate a sandy ridge. It say about 50 yards from the watermark. It say on shore of Chancey Lane and southern coast of the island. This ridge proved to be a kitchen mitten containing many objects of Arawak workmanship. Among others encountered at this site was a skeleton lying on his left side about 20 inches under the surface. Mr. Shellstone believed this skeleton to be an Arawak Indian. Now check this out. He said the Arawaks wasn't Negroes, but this is what this guy is saying. And this is an article that was published in 1937. All right, it say 1937 presented it as such to the U.S. National Museum upon reconstruction of skulls from the many fragments in which it was received in Washington. He said, I felt justified in calling it a Negro for reasons that will appear from the following description. All right, boom. I'm not even going no more. I'm the motherfucking attentionist one. I got shit to do. I really gotta go. But just remember what we covered, man. And just remember, don't let these niggas lie to you, man. The word African was originally used to white residents in Africa in 1815. It's used for black residents in the U.S. It's at no point in time saying that the people in the entire continent was calling themselves this. Because these people was calling this. That's why the people that's in South Africa that's getting kicked out are called Afrikaners, okay? Now I said are called Afrikaners. It's an adjective by the 1560s pertaining to Africa and Africans. Okay, now it's saying Africanistic from 1722. It say or pertaining to Black Americans. Okay. Now look up the word Africa one more time before we end this. All right. Now Africa is saying Latin. Now, why is it not in Umbanga or one of the African languages? Because it was created by these people. It's a African land, Libya, or Carthaginian territory. It's the province of Africa. Okay. Now let's see. It says in African, It's a word of uncertain origins. The Latin word originally was used only in reference to the regions around modern Tanzania. It gradually was extended to the whole continent. Derivations from the Phoenician cognate of Arabic, afar, dust, earth is tempting. It's tempting. It's tempting. Okay, it's a derivation. So these are derivatives from the Phoenician cognate. It's Arabic. It's afar. So they are claiming. So the word from Phoenician cognate, they use the word afar, means dust or earth. Now some people say the word African is a code word for earth, but it says dust, afar. Okay, afar. Now these are the words that they saying. Now how did it come? Afar we can. Or Afar Ekan, and how did the whole continent of Africa is not the Phoenicians, or it's not the Carthaginian territory. So how did the whole word get applied to people? We just seen how the word got applied to people, man. And it also got applied with Darwin. Alright, so I said, man, y'all niggas need to do some research because you guys are very pseudo. It's a use of white residents of Africa from 1815. Okay? Now, like I said, man, we ain't going no further with this. There's more information that has to be done as far as this. But as far as the shit that they talking about, yo, man, I'm just telling y'all, man, like, yo, these niggas don't know. You know, I got empirical data where it shows you, and this is not the only article. I got another article in the cut that I ain't even put out there yet. But it's showing you. This even show you the cranial-typical type right here. Now, it's saying, hold up, check this out. I'm going to read one more thing right here. Let me see. All right. Let me see. And they telling you. Now, this is all the cranial types right here. But they go in to tell you some additional stuff right here. This is how they know it wasn't an Indian. I'm sorry, this shit is jumping all over the place. But you know what? You guys ain't seen this before, man. I'm posting in the description. I really gotta go. I got some things I gotta do. Now I say, look, it says one of these Cuban skulls. Check this out. It says one of these Cuban skulls for comparison with the Negroes. So if you read it, it says the contrast with the Barbados skull shown in the same plate is striking. It says that I will give only 3 indices for the Cuban. It's a cranial. So they gonna eventually say that the Cuban, the skull, they found the skull in Cuba. It's a small collection from Cuba of which the history is unknown. It's a stand apart from all of the rest, showing no frontal occipital deformity, since I say reported clear distinction between the Siboney, and the Arawak people of Cuba. It say as regard. So as you read this, it's telling you, man, like I said, this has a lot of information in it just to smash niggas like Garfield who think he's an African, who we just showed you that the word African is a fairly new word, and it was applied, and it's an ambiguous term because the people of that continent didn't even know it until they, just like the people didn't even know they was a nigga until they started saying, oh, you a nigga, and then you're like, what, me? And then it started applying to you, just like the word, oh, you are African, and then it just automatically just applied to people. So with that being said, man, don't let these people call you out. These brother Jabari don't know shit about the Americas, and you can tell in his ignorance. Like you said, you don't have to ask people what they know. You ask them what they know, and they're going to tell you